cheap solar power, batteries, and electric vehicles are changing the transport and energy sector as we know. I bring in guests to this podcast who will help you with their ideas to navigate this energy transition. By the way, this episode is also available as a video on our YouTube channel. Just search Energypreneurs. Thank you for joining. Good morning from Manila. I like the exciting background. Where are you today, Greg?
I'm actually sitting in Hervey Bay at the virtual head office, which is one of the best places in Australia to live. And night backdrop, of course, with our vehicles that we delivered in July last year to Woolworths, 9 of them in one.
Amazing. I've not seen them yet in Sydney in Woolworths.
But to go to Woolies, you'll see them running around at most of the metropolitan stores. There's only 20 at the moment. We're looking at more later down the track.
Yeah. Tell me about these vehicles. How many you have on your portfolio? How many designs?
We've got this design. Actually, it's an interesting story behind that. Woolworths contacted us and said, we like the idea that you're trying to set up EV manufacturing in Australia. Can you design a trolley collector for us? And that happened in November 21. Sent it to our designers in Stuttgart, and they came up with this concept behind, a little bit different. And we took it to Woolworths, and they said, oh, that looks all right. It looks good. And went to the board, and then came back with a few changes. February 2022, they said, okay, we like it. How soon can we have some? So we said pretty soon, and we had 2 prototypes on the road July the 1st. So from February to July was the vehicle design accepted, the moulds made, the completed pieces sent to Australia and then assembled here in Australia. No one else in auto can do it that way. Usually it's a 3-year cycle. And it's part of the success of it is, of course, the composite moulding solutions we use.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the story. And now what we're doing, we've got other vehicles underway. It's a bit embarrassing. It's been so hard getting things running in Australia. We've got over 200 reservations of vehicles. That's where people have paid a small fund, sum just to reserve a vehicle. Never been able to deliver on it because I've been able to establish a factory. It's used in the past the contractor, which is how we built these Woolies vehicles or assembled them. And we're in the stage now where we've got 100 vehicles coming out toward the end of this year. We'll have a site where they'll be assembled, and we're underway. And then next year we're launching our Ace Gecko, which is a very sophisticated van, called the Tesla of vans, except hasn't got the Tesla price. And it'll later on become a skateboard that we can build anything on top of. So it can be tray back, camper van, whatever. So we're in a pretty exciting place now, Sahil. It's been 8 years. People said, why haven't you given up, Greg? I said, a little bit stubborn, and we're making progress.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. When we met in Batumi, then you just an idea and the vision to push this line, no?
It was. That invitation by yourself, the Asian Development Bank to Georgia, was a good stepping stone, real good stepping stone. And look, the great thing that we have, which is still not really recognised, is the energy management system we've got built into the vehicles. Can built into the vehicles. It's still in prototype stage. We've got 5 prototypes built. And we expect we'll be developing it with the Federation University. They've set up a Centre for New Energy Transition Research in Ballarat in Australia. Very work with us on this. And effectively, the energy management device means that, and it's AC, so it's cheaper than DC, is our vehicle can plug into a power point. As long as the other side of the power point has a smart meter, our smart meter in a vehicle can communicate and sort out what happens in terms of energy transfer or grid integration of the vehicle. And we demonstrate out of our Paris lab that it can charge other vehicles and provide grid services, and there are a few other capabilities it has as well.
Yeah, that was my next question, but you answered it well. So it has a V2G and V2H compatibility. So if you have a holiday home, Tiny, you can connect and it will talk to the meter and sort it out and start feeding the house.
Yeah, and it's only prototype, so we've still got a bit more development to do. In effect, the federal government helped us develop this.
Wow. So that must be giving you a huge competitive edge already beyond being Australian made, no?
It's not, because nothing's happened. We've been stymied by funds, and we were the bespoke leader with this device in November 21, but now other operators are getting to the same stage. It's still a useful device that we can incorporate in the vehicles, but not as unique as it was.
So how have you been funding your growth? Have you raised a lot of money? And I think you are attracting some government fund last time we spoke, no?
We did. We're fortunate through the auspices of Rex Patrick, a senator in South Australia, to secure a $5 million development fund. And that fund was used to develop an energy management device and also develop up the molds and capability to build the vehicles here in Australia. But it's a limited amount of money, and it went on the molds and developing the molds. And part of the result is the vehicle behind me, plus our vans sitting down in Melbourne as a prototype. In the vehicle industry, $5 million is nothing. In the equivalent of about 6.4 of our own to get the thing started, the ball rolling. And then we've been fortunate, of course, having a contract with Woolworths to develop or to build these other vehicles. And we're being approached now by quite a few different companies that want us to supply. And we've just got to attract some more funds or get hold of some more funds to support the growth of our business.
Yeah. Dubai airport, you see all those little cars running around carrying the luggages and of these little containers or whatnot, right? Hundreds of them. I'm sure all the Australian airports will be a good market to target. We already have the ute, right?
Yeah, we've got a smaller version of the ute that would probably suit the airports. That's what we're launching here in Australia at the end of the year. And in fact, they're coming in because we're supplying people who've reserved the vehicles.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So you have this 100 order from Woolworths that's helping.
This is a separate order. What happened with our website, Tim's reserved the vehicles off the website. We didn't do any marketing. Over the time, we've had over 200 vehicles reserved, and the customers have been waiting and waiting for us to supply the vehicles, and that's what we're doing toward the end of this year.
Yeah. So you've been the Tesla Model 3 example, right? People waited for so long, but they very happy with what they got eventually at the end of the queue. Are you raising any other private round or something, or getting money from arenas of the world?
We've been talking with quite a few different groups, and it has to be outside Australia. We're not having much success within Australia at the moment.
Okay. So what about international markets? I know that many years ago when we spoke, you were looking at Subic in the Philippines for assembly, because as Philippine electric vehicle law allows now, almost no taxes for another few more years on electric vehicles. So
that'll be something I'll follow up when I'm in the Philippines next month, and hopefully you and I'll get together.
You're coming to Manila?
Yes, I'm arriving there in September on the 16th.
Okay, good. I think I'm still around because I think there's a huge market right now. I myself bought an electric vehicle, and then you see, think roughly about 20,000 BYDs got sold. So there's an electric car, suddenly you will see the change.
And look, and I'll show you the new vehicle we've got. It would be ideal in the Philippines. It's small, and you can plug it into a normal power point, charge it, just the same as you do with a Tesla or anything else, really. Yeah.
And then this V2G capability, that can really open up huge possibilities in countries like this, where you might charge it fully during solar and just pick up the sort of barangay electrification or even a public lighting, just move there and connect up, because it's always peak, and some of the peaks in remote areas are all diesel fed.
That's correct. And the point of it too is when they're with bidirectionality and grid integration, you can support microgrids. And I think the future will be microgrids in small communities, because strategically it's safer and they're quicker to repair and quicker to replace if something goes wrong.
Yeah, and as you said, you're doing a universal chassis, or you can put that on a boat and you have an electric boat, right? All is basically running a motor with a bunch of batteries, right? So in simplest form, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about it. It's so simple. And the cost of operation is what's going to pivot everyone. That's important for the Philippines. sunlight into electricity into your vehicle. I'm running my vehicle from Brisbane to Hervey Bay, which is 330 kilometres. Cost me $2.56.
So are you looking at joint venturing another for your
We,
equipment?
look,
What are you looking at?
we'd be happy to join JV with other people. We've already got a couple in place, which has allowed us to get a new range of vehicles. So, yeah, always open to joint venture, particularly if there's some cash component there that can help us leverage more opportunities with what we're doing.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, good luck with that because so much can be done and you already have done quite a lot. So how big is your team now?
It's still a small team. We use contractors, so we're probably around 10 people. We've got Millard over in Paris and a bloke in Ireland. It's an interesting organisation. It's mainly virtual and people are doing different things. We get them together at different times. And then at present, as I said, we've got a factory site, which is just a contractor rather than our own. But we're aiming eventually to be set up by ourselves, operating ourselves. It's a slow process. It's probably a very slow process, a very slow example of how Holden and Ford originally set up in Australia. We're just trying to do that again, but more effectively, more efficiently.
Yeah, but with that virtual setup, you have been able to turn a virtual product into real product. That's a achievement because that's where the world is with globalization and everything else, right?
Yeah.
How you see yourself riding the EV wave that is in Australia?
I think because we're an Australian brand, and that's part of the reason we've got the reservations. You know, people in Australia want to see an Australian auto industry because auto, and a lot of people realise it, the smarter people realise it anyway, that auto really is the apex industry. It's a very complex industry to set up and operate. We're doing it simply at the moment. It will get more complex, but creates an ecosystem. Any country that's got advanced technology and advanced manufacturing has auto as its hub. For the US, Germany, Japan, China's the latest example, from virtually no auto industry to what they've got now, which is one of the largest in the globe. And because of that and complexity of auto, they've suddenly bloomed into a whole heap of other advanced manufacturing businesses. In Australia, it sold itself out. Big problem with Australia was getting rid of auto. And now we're in a position now where we've hardly got any manufacturing at all because auto was complex. It bred a lot of support organisations and manufacturers around it. It was a real ecosystem for technology and development and hived off a lot of other opportunities. That's gone. And unless we resurrect something like an apex industry that has that complexity, we'll just be digging stuff up and selling it.
And then, I don't know, Queensland did not have anything, but Mitsubishi was in Adelaide, and then you had the Toyotas and the Ford in Melbourne.
Yeah, we had Holden in Adelaide as well.
Oh, Holden also, yeah. Okay. But they're all gone now, right?
All gone, all gone. And they're basically hunted out of the country by the politicians, which was a real shame. And the excuse they had at that stage was, oh, we can't subsidise these businesses. And I think our subsidies at that stage were about $70 a head in Australia. At that same time, Germany was subsidising $235 a head. It wasn't a subsidy, it was an investment. You know, in Germany, the auto industry in Germany, screamingly better than what we had in Australia.
Only $17 a head? Because I remember that little Ford Capri, the converter used to be under Senator Button's subsidy. You could buy that in Australia maybe 11,000 years ago.
What I meant was the $17 a head was effectively what each Australian was contributing to support the motor industry here.
Okay, yeah. Australia has supported also unnecessarily the TCF industry, right? Textile, clothing and footwear. Where did that go? And all went automation, right? Yeah, the car industry would be a good one, would have been a good one, especially the batteries, now that all the lithium, a large portion of the lithiums are being dug out of Australia and going somewhere.
55%. But as I said, you need a complex industry. Simple one-dimensional industry, just it'll look after itself, but it won't grow other stuff. And out of auto, you grow. Well, Elon Musk is a great example. From his Tesla, SpaceX, all the other different things he's doing. And that's all because he got the technological foothold through auto.
Yep. And I mean, you as maybe a single manufacturer in Australia, in a way, right?
No, there are a couple of others assembling, but I guess we're the only one that's hanging an Australian badge off of it.
Yeah. Now, I think then how do you see the future with all the automation, AI, and robotics that's coming in? So you don't need a lot of people. It can be just a smart production with the smart printing and simply God knows what. The way, I mean, I heard people visiting Chinese factory and came back and say, oh my God, they are making car in the darkness because these are all robots.
Look, that's where the old criticism, oh, labour costed too much in Australia, that puts that to rest. And with automation, there's lots of new opportunities, and it'll get to the stage where someone can almost custom design their own vehicle as long as it complies with the ADAs and everything else. And it's a bit tricky. So there's huge opportunities in the future. And getting to the point, I reckon, where you can put a vehicle together, plug it in, and it'd be approved as safe to drive and everything else. But that's looking a long way ahead.
As long as you don't expect Amazon Prime equivalent delivery, I ordered my car last night. Why didn't it arrive yet? So what do you think this big battery subsidy and the general support for electric vehicle and the consumer mentality, how is that helping your company?
Look, battery subsidy is just sensible because in effect, it's using the Australians, also the Australian taxpayer, as a second subsidy for the batteries. And in effect, we're building an energy grid with government money, which is taxpayer money anyway, then funded also by the private individual. So when you buy a battery for your house, it reduces your power costs, but that battery then, when it's bidirectional, it can become a large virtual battery. And that's the advantage with our vehicles. When you've got electric vehicles everywhere, you've suddenly changed the whole dynamics. You've got virtual batteries in communities all over the country. And with the technology we've got behind the energy management device, it means that 10,000 of our vehicles with the device fitted could be summoned to pump a small bit of energy into the grid, and all that aggregate of energy would lift the grid back up to where it was. And the batteries also take a role in grid inertia, where you've got proper terminology for it, but the rolling inertia of the grids required when there's grid outage. You should know more about that than me anyway, so you can be able to tell me about it.
Now, I mean, it's amazing where we are headed. Like we are working on a project detailing the concept is basically you take 100 buses that can do 10 kilowatt. So 10 kilowatt, and you put 100,000 buses, you suddenly have a 10 megawatt power station. You just school buses, park them, 100 kilowatt, 100 of them.
Yeah, and with the technology, stabilizes the grid, that's much quicker than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and microgrids are really the future. And places like Africa, where there's small communities that don't have energy, they can suddenly become a new dynamic. Energy secure with EVs, solar, wind, and it just changes the whole community and the living standards and everything else for those communities. Just all around microgrids. You don't need the big majors with their nuclear power stations and power lines running everywhere. You can have smaller communities. And China has been very, they're adding solar at the rate every month of what Australia has in total. They're setting up microgrids. They're reducing their dependence on fossil fuel. It won't be long before they won't need fossil fuel. I was in Shanghai just in February, and I just spot the fossil fuel vehicle. The air was clean, it was quiet. China's really, it's a measure of the future. And anyone that doesn't go and have a look at China is ignoring what's going to be happening in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, and exactly as you mentioned, this China is adding per year the solar panel equivalent of what Australia did all over since 2008. That's when it started. Now, having said that, Australia has, give or take, 35,000 megawatt rooftop solar or behind the meter solar. That's almost the same size of national power grid.
Right.
So what people say, oh, this is only for 3-4 hours in a day. But then you have the batteries. You have another 2/3 of Australians who has not put solar there. Now, if everybody eventually does, and then Australia does not allow yet, like Germany does, the balcony solar. A fence, I wanted to do my house, I wanted to do the fence. It is cheaper to put solar panel as a fence, but then it's not allowed under the current code because if you add all those, electricity is coming through your ears, right? What are you going to do? And then you have a battery and EV to store. I
And
don't know what the future looks like.
you know what's amazing, and France have been smart. They've said any car park that takes more than 70 vehicles has to have solar paneling over it. And that's clever anyway. Who wants to be walking around out in the sun? And China has done well at agri-solar, and Australia stuck in some areas where they're using the solar panels basically to shelter the ground, stops evaporation rates, and suddenly you've got vegetation growing there, and you can animals on it, or small market gardens, whatever.
Yeah. And then you have the inter highway network where you can put the site. The government has this land, right? You don't need anybody's permission. You can just lease it out. So yeah, we'll have electricity from everywhere. And what's your view how Australia might look like in future in terms of all those electric adoption? How close we are going to be like China?
Look, it's political, and the politicians jump on it. And Chris Barnes, to his credit, he said he wants to see grid integration of EV. Got the battery plan out there. The only weakness is the encouragement for EV uptake. And there's a bit of fighting going on there with fossil fuel at every opportunity, saying EVs don't work, they haven't got the range, they don't last. That's all been proven wrong. And the big proof in the pudding, of course, as I said before, is the homeowner with his EV or her EV saying, okay, it's costing me $10 a week to run my car. Look at the neighbour over there with his old fossil fuel barbecue. It's costing him $100 a week to run his car. He's better off. Plus, I'm not polluting the environment. There are no toxic exhaust fumes in the city, so healthy for the kids.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the fossil fuel industries, whatever story they tell, how much money they throw in. Eventually, once the penny drops, the people will say, hey, the reality is it costs me nothing to drive a car because I have solar in my house, which nobody wants to take. And solar used to be 17% efficient, in future maybe 35. So everything has doubled. What I'm going to do, put into the car, and the car drives forever. So it doesn't matter who says what. As you said, proof is in the pudding.
I think what's happening, the world is beginning, it's bloody slow, but it needs to do it quicker. It's beginning to align with nature. We've got huge nuclear reactor in the sky. We're just getting smarter with the devices that capture that light and turn it into electricity and use it like the farmers do. And we're in business. And Australia is in a perfect spot because of its huge size and the opportunity with sunlight to depend on fossil fuel again. So at the moment, it only takes a few ships to be taken out, and Australia's in desperate state because it doesn't have fuel.
And also that energy security factor in, right? If you're in a very rural areas, remote areas, you need to have a backup if you're running something. Often this has been a diesel backup. Those will all go. Australia has this microgrid. When I first went to Uluru, I said, oh, this has been a microgrid. Of course, there's nothing within 3,000 kilometers, right? So they have been a big microgrid. Before used to run by something else, now solar. Now, if they can do, if the mining towns go 100% renewable energy, solar plus wind plus electric vehicle, that can be copied at micro scale everywhere, right?
Of course it can. And I've got actually a bet with one of our venture partners in China to drive across the desert in a four-wheel drive EV. And that's going to be done within 5 years.
Okay, I think the range will not be an issue. Issue will be the heat and other things.
No, it won't matter. You can join us if you like. There'll be a bit of a convoy, but we'll have solar awnings. And so pull up in the middle of the day when it's real sunny, put the awnings out, relax, enjoy ourselves, charge up and continue the trip. It's not a long way anyway. It's less than 500 kilometres.
So where are you planning from? Where to where?
Simpson Desert.
Ooh. 5 days or 3 days?
Now, we'll give ourselves 5 days, but it can be done in 2 or 3.
Tell me, you're planning to do Q3 this year?
No, it'd be within 5 years.
Within 5 years. Yeah, sure. Count me in. No, because we did the GAN train. That's a lovely landscape.
Yeah. And then I think you started Dalhousie Spring. No, I might have it wrong. I shouldn't say that, but we end up at Birdsville anyway. after we cross the desert.
Well, so where you think in by 2030, the next 5 years, what's your expansion plan?
What we'd like to be in a position where in Australia we're rolling out around 5 to 10,000 vehicles a year and then growing. Holden and Ford were running up over 60,000, and it's quite realistic, particularly when we move further on with our composite moulding side of the business. The costs will drop dramatically. The manufacturing process will be very quick.
Because I also think that electric three-wheelers, because there are a lot of cheaper options you get from all over, mostly coming from India and China, but still a good quality one, maybe with an Australian brand, that maybe I think still has huge market globally.
Yeah. Now, there's been a number of people tried three wheels in Australia, and I think it's just culture's not here for it.
Not export back with an Australian quality control and Australian branding. That's what I meant.
Oh, yeah. That's potentially something we do in the future, but we've still got a few other obstacles to get across before we get to that.
Oh, wonderful. So you are working very hard. I think last time we spoke, you said, I'm retired, I want to do this, but I've got so many grandchildren. So what else are you doing for fun other than working full-time or more than full-time?
This is my fun. Rather than retire, I'll do this. I've got 10 grandchildren, and I enjoy them, and our life's pretty good. This is an interesting area to be in, and I feel that if we make this successful, we're making a great contribution to Australia's future and my grandchildren's future. It's a process where it's educating other people, and we really do need to make sure we stop the pressure on nature from all this fossil fuel that's being, because nature's just responding, and she's responding, and the evidence of the response is the range of change in climate, the weather conditions. We're getting greater extremes, more frequent, and unfortunately it's going to get worse. And if we damage the ocean much more, because the ocean has been really hiding problems that the world has, we turn the ocean against us, then we're in real trouble.
In terms of electric vehicle, having spent so much time driving one, building one, traveling all over and seeing China transforming every few months that you go to, what do you tell an average person who's still not across the line saying, oh, okay, it doesn't work?
It's quite funny, actually, Sahel. You've probably experienced it too. Some people don't want to get in and drive it. I think they just, because I know as soon as you've driven one, you can't drive an old fossil fuel. It's vibrating, it's noisy, it's smelly, and you've got to take it to a petrol station to fuel it. Whereas with the EV, it's like a concert hall in mine, and you drive along and it drives itself as well. And you get home, you plug it in at home and go to bed and don't worry about it. And it costs so little. The services, you don't service interval. My first service of my vehicle is for the wiper blades next year, and it reaches 40,000 kilometres.
Yep, we have not been to a service yet. We have been driving one for 2 years and a bit.
Yeah. And anyone that does actually drive it, they realise, but it's a very powerful culture back there, I think, built around fossil fuel. It's been built over years. It's a bit like how cigarettes were a big thing in life and the health problems that come with them. And vehicles, it's worse, far worse. That's why some schools and cities will just say you're not allowed to drive your diesel truck or van or vehicle. Pick your kids up.
Good. Yeah, I thought that will happen earlier. Now that we have an option, maybe that needs to be imposed strictly.
And survival-wise, it's just the way to go. You save so much money, and there's so much you can do with an electric vehicle. It's a computer on wheels, really.
I think that's something very important that people do. A lot of people saying, oh, it's another car. I said, it is a different experience, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody last week. He's not crossed the line yet saying, what do I get? It's another car. I don't need. I said, no, it's not another car. It's an experience. You're driving, even you are in a car park, you normally cannot switch on your other car. You should not, because you're polluting. Here you can lie down and watch your Netflix while you're waiting for your wife to come back from shop, or your spouse to come back from shopping, right? Or you're waiting for kids in school. Oh my God, it's so hot. I cannot run the aircon or I cannot run the heater. But now you can just sleep, do whatever you want.
True. And with my car, I can put a tent on the back of it and it air conditions the tent all night. Comfortable. I've done it a couple of times. It's brilliant. And I think The problem that a lot of the auto have is they've taken auto and converted it to electric, whereas Elon took the concept and built it basically a car around a battery and a computer around a battery. And that's why he's so successful. He's put so many features into it that just increase the comfort and joy of being in the vehicle.
So are you planning to put a self-drive on your car as well soon?
I've already got it.
You got?
Yeah, but it's not full. You can't use full in Australia. But I drove it from Hervey Bay down to Melbourne. No issues. Everyone carries on about range problems and everything like that. And most people get bound up about range rather than the fact that you need to stop usually every 2 or 3 hours anyway, just to have a rest from driving. And you have a coffee. By the time you've had your coffee, the car's charged. You haven't had to sit there fueling it. You just plug it in and walk away. And so I drove to Melbourne and with my thumb on the steering because it's self-drive. All I had to do was show still in control.
Yeah. Which Tesla you have then?
Why? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we also have a Y, but we drove from Sydney to Sunshine Coast in a day. That was without knowing what the charges are, but we survived.
You can, and there's plenty of charges. There's over 3,000 in Australia now.
But that was more than 2 years ago. We had no idea.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
works out.
And there's no issues at all. I've done here to Adelaide and back
okay.
to the centre. No dramas.
Lovely. Very nice talking to you. I'm sure, I hope it inspires somebody who's thinking of manufacturing or thinking of doing something significant with the electric vehicle like you have. So how can people reach you?
Just through the website and Ace Electric Vehicle Group, or we've got 2 websites. There's aceev.com.au, which is down at the moment if something went wrong with it. And we've got the second website, which is aceelectricvehicles.com.au. So they can reach out there. And I think the greatest satisfaction I would have today is if your talk and my talk, more people bought some EVs to protect the environment and experience a bit more money in their pocket.
Absolutely. Is there anything I could have asked you?
I don't think so. You've done a great job. Looking forward to catching up to you in the Philippines and see what trouble we can get into there.
Yes, I think I like that point. Let's get into some trouble, yes. Thanks,
Sahil.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Energypreneurs. If you enjoyed this, don't forget the full video is on YouTube. Just search Energypreneurs. Thank you. See you next time.